Okay, so if you're just joining us, we've had to break up these sessions because, unfortunately or fortunately, depending on your bent, Paddy and I can talk endlessly about these matters, which I think is a good thing. I think they've been
Yeah,
enjoyable sessions.
some of that.
And Paddy is the head of education at Text Help. And in this final session, we're going to break it up just to that. The big question that we've sort of alluded to a few times, but there's a session on Saturday the 1st that Paddy is running sort of related to this question of why accessibility matters. So, Paddy, I thought this would be a really good chance to kind of you give us a teaser for this because it's probably it's probably the thing that is going to get people the most passionate, and it's a really interesting session. I've personally have signed up for it. So, would you be so kind to give us some teasers of that session around that question of why accessibility matters?
Yeah, I mean, we've obviously talked lots over these episodes, but you know, you can introduce assistive technology or technology, and you can introduce that in the classroom. That helps remove barriers. You can look at things like universal design for learning. You can move to goal-based approaches. You can have multiple ways to share content with your students and types of content. So you can do all of that. But fundamentally, what is your fastest route to accessibility to enable all those things to happen? Accessibility meaning I'm going to take my learning materials and I'm going to make sure that that learning material is reachable to all students. It's at the right level, it's in the right style, it helps every difference that's there. Now that for me, the session title is really about building a foundation. So how do you go, right? As I'm moving forward and I'm finding a document on the web or I'm buying a document from a third party source or I'm creating my own, how do you make that accessible? So the session really is about saying, rather than us coming to you as a teacher and saying, okay, you just got to change everything you do, right? Because nobody's going to do that, right? What we all need are small wins. So, what we've done in that session is looked at 7 habits, and we call them habits on purpose. And we say, look, we just got to get this into habit. This is not about fundamentally changing your practice, it's not about changing your approaches to learning, it's just about forming new habits. So, I'll give you an example of one. We give a recommendation for a simple font to use, and we show you how to in Google Docs and in Microsoft Word just change your default font, right? That's one thing we mentioned earlier, but that in and of itself suddenly makes that document far more readable
Yeah.
to many, many, many students, even if they're not using assistive technology or reading right art technology. They're just reading it on the screen, more readable. So we go through a series of 7 of those and we go, right, here's a practical way that you can actually make a change. Here's a practical thing that you could literally go to the staff room and say, here, you do that. And you could do that, and it would take you all of 30 seconds to do it, and you end up forming a habit to do it. So this is not about like change in terms of big things that change your practice. They're small things, but ultimately do change the impact on your students a lot from an accessibility standpoint, making things more readable. Things like why contrast? Here's a couple of colors to pick when you're doing your next slide deck, and here's a couple of colors not to pick. Sounds really, really obvious, but once you kind of know, once you're into the habits and you're like, oh well, yeah, I'll do that next time
Yeah.
because it really, really helps everybody. And therefore, you get things like the UDL becomes easier in terms of if that's a big practice thing you decide to embrace, because UDL fundamentally needs to make sure that your resources are accessible. Like, are they changeable? Can you take a document and turn it into an audiobook? Can you turn it into a series of pictures? It needs to be accessible from the start to be able to do all of those things. Same is true of things like our technology, read and write. You know, if you can't read the words on a page by clicking it, that means the document isn't accessible. And that means all those people who need assistive technology or our tools, they can't access it. So that foundation really useful. But I've just always found in the sections that I've run with that you just need to give quick wins. You just need to go, that we all go, here's one thing I could do in the classroom when I leave. Like this is literally genuinely one of those where we go, look, here's these things. Pick the ones that are important to you, but just make a couple of changes. And they're just habits. They're not massive changes, just habits. So there's 7 of those. And I guarantee you at the end of that session, people will go away being naturally more accessible in their approaches to their current documents or resources, the websites they use, and the resources that they might want to create going forward.
Yeah, I think that sounds really positive, and I like the idea of habits as well because, I think sometimes teachers with performance management and data-driven analysis of their classes can feel, oh, someone wants me to do this, and there's a pressure over here, and I need to get better. And actually, you're just doing some habits in a classroom, and these ones
Yeah.
might be slightly better, and these ones might be more supportive of accessibility. And accessibility is really, really important. And that I like that framing as much as those simple ideas of, look, here's a range of fonts that are going to be productive to your needs, and here's, well, not a range of fonts, but here's a range of kind of tones and colors that are going to be supportive of that as well. So yeah, that sounds like exactly the session I think I've signed up for, which is some quick wins, or I call them Monday mornings, because it's always that
Nice.
thing.
Yeah.
You finish on the Friday and you think, oh gosh, I'm not sure if those guys got that. What am I going to do Monday morning? And
Yeah.
these conferences are great. You go on the Saturday, you get there, you watch a little thing, you think, I can do that. I get
Yeah.
that. I'm going to try it.
Yeah.
Might not be perfect the first time,
Yeah.
but I can do that. And those quick wins you've mentioned sound like almost you couldn't get them wrong. You can just watch what they
Absolutely.
do and get on with
Yep.
them. So that'll be fantastic for people. And I'll not ask you for all seven because that will spoil the session.
That would spoil it. No, I'll save a
Um,
few. Save a few.
Good. No, thank you, Paddy. And we've spoken throughout these about why accessibility really matters. And I don't know. I think it's a bit of a fraudulent question to open to you, because I think it would be a very unusual teacher who would be sat there in any of the sessions throughout the day thinking, oh, those guys who struggle, I don't care about those guys.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
the climate in my classroom that means all students feel that they can change, have some support. I don't want that. Um, but it's really important what you said there about those habits, and about how teachers can go even further than what they're doing now in very simple ways. So no, thank you for that. It's really good.
Yeah. And that's one thing we really wanted to put into the conference with you guys was to make sure that we're changing mindsets and not just going, here's a tool and here's what you'll use and please buy our stuff. We are not that type of company. We are very fortunate as a company. We have many millions of users. We do very well as a company. Um, but at the same token, we always want to see more people use our tools because we know what makes an impact. And so when we're at conferences like this, I don't want anybody to ever come to a session and think, right, Paddy or Carrie Ann, my colleague who'll be there, is going to talk about reading, writing all the buttons for 50 minutes. That's not what we do. We want to challenge you to go, are these tools useful and why are they useful and how is it removing barriers? And what difference does an impact does that make to my teaching practice? What difference does it make to the pupils in my classroom if I were to do this? It's not about the technology in that case. It is about shifting mindsets. And the series of sessions that we put together are about, right, well, how do you think about inclusion differently? Right? How do you think about it differently? And what's the real world analogy to that? And then we think about, well, what's policy tell you need to do? And then we could kind of go into the other sessions, go, well, how do you do it? How do you do it with AI or how do you do it with accessibility? So
Yeah.
very keen on that challenging mindsets and giving you really something to think about and embrace and go, okay, I get the analogy and I get why it's important now. And I also know what the practical thing is that I can do to make that happen. And that's what we always aim to do from the sessions that we run.
Yeah, and I mean, it's almost become a cliche now, hasn't it? But I think Simon Sinek and his idea of the why, isn't it? Like, here's
It's
why we
important.
do what
Yeah.
we do. This is
Yeah.
who we are as a company. And if
Yeah.
that results in you wanting to buy our stuff, great. Because we believe it's really, really good, and that's why we
Yeah.
go to work every day.
Exactly.
You're
Yeah.
right. I think that idea that, it's very clear from these conversations here that this is as much as we are passionate about going in to do our work, this is something that for you guys is an absolute passion,
Yeah.
because you really believe in what you're producing. And I think on the day, I think people are going to be really excited to kind of see it in action and to hear about, wins that you've had, big wins, the small wins that you can have on the Monday morning. I think it's all of it. I know certainly just a few things that we've discussed here, little slow cogs at this time in the evening, but cogs all the same, turning and thinking,
Yeah.
oh, just drop that in tomorrow. That might be quite useful. So, um, no, I'm really looking forward to the session I've signed up for, and I'm sure other people listening are as well. Um,
Yeah.
is there anything you kind of wanted to say in rounding this off, Paddy? Because I'm conscious that it's probably quite late where you are as well. We will be,
No, I think if everybody's coming, encourage anybody and everybody to, if you don't get the session, because I know, look, it's an absolutely fantastic schedule all day long. Like it really is top. You guys have just put on such a brilliant conference, and we're so privileged to be able to sponsor it this year. We really are. But do, if you can't get to the session, do come and talk to myself or Carrie Ann, and let's just have a chat about any of these things. We're more than happy to do that and give you advice in any way possible. So we'll be around and we'll be there. In fact, we're in Abu Dhabi all week. We'll be there, and we're taking Sunday off. Just because it's Abu Dhabi and it would be wrong not to. So we'll be happy to chat to anybody at any time at the conference, and we're very excited. And for us, anything to do with inclusive learning, that's where we sit, and that's what we're fundamentally passionate about, as you said earlier.
Yeah, and I think that's why, we feel very much the same having you at the conference. It feels like a good partnership because that's the conference is very much designed to help people to improve what they do on a daily basis to make things better for students and having someone like yourselves there as well, it feels, oh gosh, I've gone all business talk. I've mentioned Simon Sinek. I'm just going about to say synergy then. Come on, bro, think of something better. Anyway, but it does. It feels like that's a collaboration that's going to benefit the community and it feels right as well for us. So before I drift into absolute terrible business cliches and have to go and sort of chastise myself, we'll stop there. We've got three lovely sessions there that introduce people to three sort of episodes, if you like, of what it is that you guys do and what they can expect from you guys at the conference. Saturday, the 1st of February, you've got three sessions plus the keynote at the start, with a variety of different topics that are very practical. And as you say, based on the policy, but also based on things like policy, but also based on just what's right and what's
Yeah.
good to do in your classroom. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to it, Paddy, and I'll see you in. Oh, it's coming around the corner. It's only a few days, 20
Us
days.
too. Yeah. 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 Not too far away now. Yeah.
Right. Have a lovely evening and speak to you soon and see you very, very soon.
Indeed. Thank you, everybody. See you soon.
Bye bye.